Hi guys, this is the next part of What If Gohan Never Stopped Training. I hope you enjoy it and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to ensure you never miss another exciting story. Over the next few weeks, Gohan found himself settling into a new routine. He still meditated in the morning, then headed off to school, sparred with Piccolo for a couple of hours, had dinner, and afterwards, took the time to play with his little brother. Fortunately, since his little demonstration with the teachers, they had all found something else for him to do. After testing him out in every class, the teachers assigned random work they thought he might find interesting. When he was done with whatever they had come up with for the day, he would spend the remainder of his time talking with either Piccolo or Dende. Gohan was not sure what he would have done without them keeping him sane. He then ended his day. After Krillin's fun on the first day, he now wore his traditional gi. He was enjoying helping the advanced students, trying to teach them his most basic kata, but they were struggling with it. Much to his surprise, he was actually making a few friends. Sharpener, when he was not showing off, was actually interesting. He had given up after their first gym class with the ridiculous nerd boy commentary and now referred to Gohan as brains, but he meant it as a compliment. Arasa, once Gohan adjusted to high-pitched quality of her voice, proved to be more intelligent than she let on. Turns out, she just preferred not making a big deal out of it. Videl rounded out the little group. She was highly suspicious of how Gohan knew as much as he did and managed to be so skilled in the martial arts, but she was also starting to respect him. Gohan had been pleasantly surprised by the fact that even though Videl tended to be rude and abrupt, at least she did not take after the buffoon. Settling into his desk, Gohan prepared to pass another day watching the clock, pleased that at least it was Friday and there was a 2-week holiday starting Monday, celebrating Satan's victory over Cell. Mr. Hayek gained the class's attention. Class, I am very excited to announce a very special event and trip. Everyone is to bring in either a parent or a parental figure, someone important to you that helped raise you. You will present your person to the rest of the class, talk about why they are important to you. If it is not a parent, you can explain how you met. Your person will also have the opportunity to introduce you to the class from their perspective. Then we will be leaving the school and first visiting Capsule Corporation. We will receive a tour from the famous Briefs Bulma, and we get to try out the latest capsule product, a survival kit, for the second half of our trip. You all, with your parent or guardian, will be going on a special 2-week survival trip. You are to bring only some spare clothes, nothing else. I am going to pass out permission slips. We leave Monday, so be sure to bring them in. Gohan groaned. There was no way in HFIL he was going to ask his mother to come on a survival trip with him. Piccolo. What is it, kid? Care to go on a little trip with me? What kind of trip? The school kind. We are to bring someone that is important to us, help to raise us, and then go to CC for a tour with Bulma, followed by a 2-week survival trip. You are the only person I want to go with me. Gohan held his breath. He did not want his apprehension leaking across their bond. That was not fair to Piccolo. But it was true, Piccolo was the only person he would want to spend 2 solid weeks with in the wild. He was his father, brother, and best friend rolled into one. The only one that never judged him and actually asked what he wanted, instead of telling him what was expected. Fine, but I am not going soft, kid, I just don't want to listen to you whine. You have to deal with the Banshee woman on your own though. Gohan could feel the self-satisfied smirk that came with that comment. Convincing his mother that Piccolo was the perfect option was going to be interesting, but worth it. He had been thinking about Dende's comments since their conversation. He could play along with being a nerd for a little while for his mother, but he could not do it for the rest of his life. The strain of constantly watching every little thing was already getting to him. It was time to introduce the class to the real him. He wondered how they would take it. Pulling himself out of his thoughts, he listened to his friends chatter about whom they would bring. I am bringing my dad, there is no way my mom would step foot into the wild. Arasa said, are you bringing your dad, Videl? Videl sighed, she really didn't want to bring him, but it was either him or her grandmother, and her grandmother couldn't handle a trip into the wild. Yeah, I'll probably bring him. I just hope he does not go through his entire routine in front of everyone. What about you, Sharpener? My dad, we keep meaning to go camping together, but we never make it. This is as good a time as any to actually go. Hey Brains, are you dragging your dad out too? Sharpener asked, looking over at him. Gohan could not help the slight flinch. He knew most of his classmates would bring their fathers, but hearing that particular question was still painful. No, my dad died several years ago. I'm going with my sensei. His three friends looked at him in shock. They had not realized Gohan's dad was dead, but then again, they had never asked. I'm so sorry Gohan, Arasa recovered her voice first, we didn't realize. How did he die? Gohan once again flinched before his expression hardened. Cell. His voice was flat, cold, and did not invite further comment. Who is your sensei Gohan? He has to be really good considering what you have us working on in gym. Videl was desperately trying to change the subject. After losing her mother, she knew how painful it could be to talk about it. That, Gohan smirked, is a surprise. You are right though, he is very good. As long as you aren't too terrified of him, I'll introduce you. Videl looked at him as though he had lost his mind. Why would they be terrified of him? But before she could press further, Mr. Hayek demanded the class's attention once more. Mom, I'm home. Stepping inside their home, Gohan was considering the best way to approach his mother about the upcoming trip. She wanted him to be discreet, and a 7 feet green man was not discreet. He was sure an argument would ensue, probably no dinner, and he might have to face the fry pan, but it would be worth it, as long as she signed. Big brother. A blur of movement suddenly raced toward him. Used to his brother's antics, Gohan merely caught him and listened to him tell his big brother all about his day, without having to take a single breath. Gohan, how was school today? Chi-Chi asked from the kitchen. It never ceased to amaze him how she could whip up as much food as she did. It was interesting. We have a field trip on Monday. He was cautiously feeling his way through. I have to bring in someone important to me that helped raise me, and then take that person on a 2-week survival trip. Okay. Spit it out, because I know you don't want me coming with you. Chi-Chi was giving him a suspicious look, already reaching for the frying pan. I asked Piccolo. Ah, that monster. He kidnapped my poor baby and corrupted him. Gohan, how could you think about taking him? What will your friends say? Slowly pulling his hands away from his ears, he looked his mother over. He was upset. No, that is too mildly for the feeling coursing through him. He was angry and well on his way to being truly pissed. Do not talk about him like that. Chi-Chi looked at him slightly alarmed. His teeth were clenched and his eyes were teal even though his hair was still black. That monster, as you call him, is my best friend and he has saved my life more times than you know. He died protecting me and you will not show him such disrespect. Though he was speaking quietly, the words held such a deathly chill that Chi-Chi was actually a bit afraid. Kid, calm down right now. I said you had to deal with her, not kill her. Piccolo's voice filled his mind. Closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, Gohan took his friend's advice. Looking back at his mother, his eyes were once again onyx, though not exactly calm. I am sorry Mom, I should not have lost my temper. Just this once, I need you to respect my decision, and my feelings on the matter. Taking a deep breath herself, Chi-Chi walked over to her oldest son and took the form from his hand. After signing it, she hugged him. Okay, just be careful. After your friends meet Piccolo, they will never look at you the same way again. I know, he sighed, but they will see who I am, which is good enough for me. The weekend flew by. Gohan tossed on his favorite gi, pretty much what he wore to the Cell Games, but with a dark blue short-sleeved undershirt, grabbed a couple of spare gis, and ran out the door. He flew to Piccolo's waterfall. Landing, he saw his sensei in his traditional lotus position, floating in midair garbed in his traditional violet gi, white cape, and turban. Gohan found it comforting how steadfast and sturdy his friend was, not much else in his life was. Ready Piccolo? Gohan called. Piccolo growled slightly. Truth be told, he was rather pleased the kid asked him. Before Gohan, he had had no one. He lived in complete isolation with nothing to keep him company except his hate. After that year spent training the boy, his isolation was not as appealing, his hate no longer a driving force. The kid had made him soft. Not that he had any intention of anyone else realizing how easily he bent to Gohan's wants. Even he was slightly shocked how deep their friendship ran. Piccolo remembered the moment their bond developed into what it was now, in that dark time after Cell. He could hear Gohan's thoughts, feel his emotions. In turn, Gohan had the same window into his soul, able to feel and hear everything. It had driven him insane in the beginning. Gohan had had no control, leaking every thought and emotion into his head. Since he had learned control, both could retain privacy when desired. Or, as they were wont to do during meditation, open up and let go to someone that completely understood the other and held no judgments. It also made them a deadly team in a fight, always knowing exactly what the other planned to do and perfectly coordinating their attacks. Since Gohan had started attending school, they had had precious little time together. The two had just enough time after school for a quick spar, but not enough for a true meditation session. Piccolo found himself missing that aspect of their friendship. It not only kept Gohan balanced, but made Piccolo feel complete. 2 weeks in the wild, no school cutting into their training time, no Banshee woman. Piccolo was definitely pleased Gohan had asked. Piccolo. Gohan called again. Growling once more, Piccolo unfolded from his meditative pose and cocked a brow ridge at Gohan. Chuckling, Gohan leapt into the air and the two flew toward the city. I figured we would get in a little late. We will make an entrance into the classroom, but you will not have to deal with the crowded hallways. Piccolo grunted in response, agreeing with Gohan's plan. Him in a crowd was not a good idea. Though I may have forgotten, or conveniently skipped the fact that I have to introduce you to the class. Piccolo just glared at him this time. Gohan shrugged at him. At least he did not fly back to his waterfall. Landing outside the school, the two headed in only to be greeted by the first scream of the day. The secretary was looking at Piccolo as though a fiend from hell was standing in the office. Gohan just shook his head while Piccolo smirked. He still had it. May I have a pass to class please? I was running a bit late today. The secretary stuttered at him, shakily handing him a piece of paper. The welcome to class was not much better. Gohan knocked before entering. Mr. Hayek was pleased to see him. Gohan, you made it. Where is your parent? Gohan stepped in with Piccolo following behind. As one, his class let out a screech. Do you have to do that? Gohan demanded, holding his hands over his ears. Mr. Sun, who is that? Mr. Hayek was pale and visibly shaking. Oh, this is Demon Lord Piccolo Jr. My sensei and guest for this trip. Gohan was doing his best not to laugh at the horrified look on everyone's faces. You are enjoying this, aren't you? Piccolo asked. Yeah, I really am. Do you know how hard it has been trying to be normal for the past few weeks? If I don't concentrate on every movement, I break something or draw even more attention to myself. Besides, I am not normal, and proud of it. Well, poor Mr. Hayek could not quit stuttering. This was the Demon King after all, in his classroom. The boogeyman incarnate. Since you are the last to present, why don't you introduce your guest to the class? Sure. As I said, this is Damo Piccolo, my sensei since I was 4. I met Piccolo a long time ago, the first time I was kidnapped. Wait, the first time, you were kidnapped more than once. Videl interrupted in shock, though now she could understand why Gohan had felt they might be terrified of his sensei. Yes, the first time, and yes, I have been kidnapped more than once. Now as I was, why were you kidnapped at all? This time the interruption had come from Arasa. The first and the second time were because of my father, and the third, he couldn't believe it. Someone interrupted again. Wait, who was your father? Why would you be kidnapped because of him? And there was a third time. This one was from Videl again. By this time, Piccolo was losing his patience. Is this what you put up with all day? He asked Gohan, gesturing to the class. Yes. Gohan replied, rather fed up with everyone's reaction. I could just send them into the next dimension and then there would be no more interruptions. Piccolo offered. Gohan could see the mirth in Piccolo's eyes. He was enjoying himself. More than that, he could feel Piccolo's sadistic amusement through their bond. He knew the rest of the class did not realize the Demon King was only kidding, or that the Demon King possessed a sense of humor in the first place. Looking at the faces in front of him, Gohan pretended to consider the offer. The idea has merit, but maybe we won't need to go that far. Gohan was at this point struggling to keep a straight face. His class looked horrified and Piccolo's laughter was echoing through his mind. Okay, let's try this again. My father's name was Son Goku, miracle of miracles. No one interrupted him this time. As some of you might know, he was a gifted martial artist, taking second place in 2 tournaments and first in the last WMAT he participated in against none other than Piccolo. The first time I met Piccolo was the first time I was taken from my home. There was a man named Garlic Jr. He had plans to dominate the world and figured the best way to go about it was to eliminate the strongest fighters. He took me in an effort to draw my father out. Piccolo and my father defeated him and he was imprisoned. The second time I met Piccolo was about a year later, when I was 4. My uncle caused Piccolo a bit of trouble. After irritating Piccolo, Gohan heard Piccolo's snort at his description. He hunted my father down, demanded something of him, and took me as collateral. Again, my father and Piccolo teamed up. My uncle never made it to a prison. The class was staring slack-jawed at Gohan. They had gotten used to him the last few weeks, accepting that he was not only brilliant, but also a gifted fighter. It never occurred to any of them that there might be more to him than just that. Taking a breath, Gohan continued. The third time I was kidnapped happened the same day. That time, Piccolo kidnapped me himself. He was rather disgusted with the fact that I had not had any training as of yet and decided to rectify the situation himself. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. He dumped me in the middle of nowhere with the clothes on my back and a sword. He told me that if I could survive 6 months on my own then I would be worthy of his training. I not only made it through those 6 months, but then the next 6 months of extreme training. We rose at dawn and sparred until after the sun went down, sleeping out under the stars at night. Even after I returned home, I still trained with Piccolo daily. He became a second father and my best friend, the first friend I ever made. Gohan stepped back and looked at Mr. Hayek. Jumping slightly, his teacher motioned to Piccolo. Do you want to take a moment and talk about why Gohan is important to you, sir? Mr. Hayek must be calming down, he wasn't stuttering as badly. Piccolo growled, baring his fangs, which made the entire class flinch and cower. My reasons are my own, Gohan knows them and that is enough. However, you should thank him. It is only because of him that I decided not to follow in my sire's footsteps and kill as many of you as possible. Gohan crossed his arms and snorted at Piccolo. He never changes. The class finally filed out toward the bus. The entire group was giving Gohan and Piccolo a wide berth. Piccolo took one look at the bus and shook his head at Gohan in a definite refusal to be in such a small space. I'll meet you at CC. Piccolo rose into the sky and flew off, much to the amazement of those present. Once on the bus, Videl slid in next to Gohan. Gohan. Videl started in. You never said you trained under the Demon King Piccolo. Or your father being Son Goku, not to mention that you were kidnapped. When did anyone ask me about my family or what my training entailed? Think about it. Krillin told you I was a master of the demon style. Whose style did you think it was? Hey. Gohan was ready to change the subject. Videl was not too bad once you got to know her, but her version of friendly questions was the equivalent to interrogation to the rest of the world. Did your dad back out? I didn't see him. Videl let out a huff. Gohan was right, none of them had bothered to ask him anything beyond the superficial. Thinking of her father, Videl just rolled her eyes. My dad will be meeting us right before we leave for the survival site. She lowered her voice to a whisper. I am supposed to say that he had a meeting he couldn't postpone, but truthfully, he is not allowed inside Capsule Corporation. Gohan could not help it, he cracked up. He knew why the buffoon was banned from the property. Not only did he lie about Cell, but also he had actually been stupid enough to hit on Bulma. No one did that and walked away unscathed with Vegeta around. The rest of the drive was peaceful. Most people were chatting with their parents. Gohan and Videl talked about the old WMATs. After exiting the bus, Piccolo floated down to stand next to Gohan. There was an immediate 10 feet gap between them and the rest of the group. Do you feel that? Piccolo asked. Yeah, the demon duo is headed our way. No sooner had the words left his mouth when Gohan was tackled by the evil duo. Gohan. Big brother. Trunks and Goten shouted at the same time. Save us. The rest of class had their now familiar slack-jawed expression, staring at him again. What did you two do this time? He could feel Vegeta's key headed for them and he was pissed. Well, we kinda broke the GR. But it was an accident, I swear. Goten babbled, panicking. You did not mess with Vegeta's GR, it was as bad as touching his food. Brats. Vegeta roared. Trunks and Goten hid more fully behind Gohan, trying to delay the inevitable. Vegeta suddenly noticed the large group in his yard. What are you Baka humans doing here? Leave before I blast you. Fine. Final FL. Yo, Vegeta. Your mate invited the Baka humans. Where is she anyway? Gohan called out, trying to distract the prince from actually blasting the group into the next dimension. Cockabrat. Namek, what are you doing here? Never mind. Spar, now. Vegeta demanded, dismissing the lower life forms from his mind. Sorry, I don't have time for you right now, but these two, he held up one chibi in each hand, would love a spar. Wouldn't you boys? They merely whimpered. Vegeta on the other hand displayed a feral grin and took the boys off Gohan's hands. You have been around me for far too long, Piccolo stated. Not that he minded Gohan sacrificing the pair. The last time he was around the duo they had attempted to dye his cape pink. He was all for them getting a little quality Vegeta time in. Gohan! Videl shrieked. Gohan and Piccolo winced. Why did the female population in the school insist on reaching decibels designed to destroy superior hearing? Do you know who that was? That man has been voted the most dangerous man on Earth 6 years in a row. Yeah, Vegeta was very pleased about that too. Relax Videl, Trunks is his son, and the other one is my kid brother. Vegeta is just going to tire them out before their afternoon nap. Nap? They won't be napping, they'll be unconscious. There is a difference. Piccolo snorted quietly. Oh, you mean you weren't letting me get a nap in all those years ago? Came Gohan's cheeky reply. Videl just looked at him in horror. You know that man and you turned your brother over to him. Then suddenly she looked at him a bit more closely. How do you know? Welcome to Capsule Corporation everyone. I am Briefs Bulma and I will. Gohan. Bulma walked over and gave him a hug. I was hoping you would be able to make it. After all they will be trying your new product out. Piccolo, it's good to see you. Piccolo graced her with a very slight nod. Dealing with most people, even within the Z gang, was not high on his oh goody list. You know Briefs Bulma. Again the class turned to him. Gohan was getting tired of the constant shock. Surely, it would get better as the day went on, right? Of course he knows me. He is my godson after all. With that, Bulma led them into the dome building. Piccolo chose to sit outside and meditate. After leading the group through the building, they came to the invention room. Bulma explained the newest CC survival product to them. As you all probably know, Gohan lives in the 439 mountain area. After a few more gasps of surprise, Bulma continued. I take it then you never asked where he lived. Anyway, he lives in a very remote area. Several months ago, he approached me about creating a more inclusive survival package. Gohan, do you want to explain? Sure Bulma, I tend to find a handful of lost hikers every year on our property. The problem is none of them ever seem to have the proper survival gear or even basic rations. Having to haul each one of them to the nearest village for medical attention does tend to get old. The excuses are always the same, not wanting to carry several capsules or a large backpack or they lost their capsules. Bulma and I have put together everything a person would need to survive in the wilderness for 2 weeks into a single capsule. It has water, emergency rations, shelter, a first aid kit, and a few other necessities. Its design is a little different as well. Each capsule is incredibly light, and has been formed into a wristband. This makes it easy to carry and harder to lose. Bulma stepped forward to take over. We are very excited about Gohan's kit. Exposure and a lack of proper nutrients is quite dangerous in the wild. One of these kits could save someone's life. Now, you all are our test group. You will get to try a kit out firsthand and give feedback on your experience. So everyone please come forward and take a band, then it's time for you to enjoy the rest of your trip. Once Bulma had given everyone a kit, she gave an extra one to Videl for her father. She gestured for Gohan to lead the